The mistake that should never have happened. Sophia Bennett learned early in life what it meant to be invisible. Not unseen, people saw her every day, but invisible in the way that mattered. The way servers ignored her at restaurants. The way supervisors spoke over her in meetings. The way strangers assumed she was small, replaceable, harmless. A hospice nurse. Quiet. Unmarried. Living paycheck to paycheck in a city that rewarded ambition and crushed the gentle. No one expected anything extraordinary from someone like her. Least of all fate. On the morning everything changed, Sophia stood by the tall windows of Riverside Hospice, her palm pressed against the cool glass as autumn leaves spun helplessly in the courtyard below. The sun bathed the building in soft gold, but her reflection looked pale, drained, unfamiliar. Her stomach churned again. Not nerves. Not anxiety. Something deeper. Something wrong. "You look like death warmed over, dear child," Grace Chin said dryly from her wheelchair, eyes sharp despite the frailty of her body. At 87, Grace had a talent for slicing through lies without raising her voice. Sophia forced a smile and adjusted the blanket around the older woman's legs. "I'm fine. Just tired." Grace snorted. That's what people say when they're about to pretend everything is okay while their world is quietly collapsing. Sophia froze. Grace's gaze softened. "Sit." Sophia obeyed, lowering herself into the chair beside the bed. Grace had been at Riverside for 3 months. In that time she had become more family to Sophia than her own blood relatives ever had. "You're not glowing," Grace continued. "Young women your age should be glowing. You look like you're carrying a secret that's eating you alive." Sophia's fingers tightened in her lap. Inside her bag, hidden beneath her wallet and spare scrubs, sat a thin white stick wrapped in tissue paper. 2 pink lines. Impossible lines. 3 weeks earlier, Sophia had gone to Riverside Medical Center for what was supposed to be a routine gynecological exam. Painful cycles. Irregular bleeding. Nothing dramatic. Dr. Helena Morrison had been recommended as the best specialist in the city. The appointment had been quick. Professional. Forgettable. Or so she'd thought. "Sophia," Grace said gently, "you can't outrun the truth. It always finds a way to tap you on the shoulder." Sophia swallowed hard. "I think something went wrong at the clinic." Grace raised an eyebrow. "That's an understatement if I've ever heard one." Sophia didn't respond. She stood abruptly, kissed Grace's forehead, and made an excuse about paperwork. An hour later, she stood trembling in the hallway of Riverside Medical Center. The same hallway she'd walked through weeks earlier without a second thought. Now it felt like a tunnel closing in on her. When the door finally opened, Dr. Morrison stepped out, her professional mask cracking just long enough for Sophia to see fear. Behind her stood an older man in a tailored suit, silver hair immaculate, expression carved from stone. "Miss Bennett," Dr. Morrison said quietly, "please come in." Sophia's heart pounded as she entered the office. The clinic director, Mr. Pembroke, closed the door behind her. "There has been an incident," he began. "A serious medical error." The words that followed blurred together. Labeling failure. Sample contamination. Procedure overlap. Insemination. Sophia felt the room tilt. "I didn't come here for fertility treatment," she whispered. "I came here for an exam." Dr. Morrison's eyes filled with tears. "You were accidentally given a procedure intended for another patient." Sophia's breath caught. "What procedure?" Silence. Then Mr. Pembroke spoke, voice grave. "Artificial insemination." Sophia's knees nearly buckled. "With donor genetic material," Dr. Morrison added. The words felt unreal. Clinical. Detached from the life they had just detonated. "Whose DNA?" Sophia asked, barely audible. The director hesitated. Then said a name that didn't belong in her world. "Julian Ashford." The air vanished from the room. Everyone knew Julian Ashford. Tech magnate. Political kingmaker. The man whose signature could shift markets and governments alike. Power incarnate. Untouchable. "Impossible," Sophia whispered. "This is a joke." "I'm afraid it isn't," Mr. Pembroke said. "We take full responsibility. We are prepared to offer compensation, medical care." "Does he know?" Sophia interrupted. "No," Dr. Morrison said. "Not yet." "And the woman this was meant for?" Another pause. "Natasha Whitmore," Mr. Pembroke said. "Mr. Ashford's fiancée." Sophia staggered backward. Not only was she pregnant with the child of the most powerful man in the country, another woman believed she was carrying that same man's baby. Sophia fled the building. She walked the city for hours, ignoring calls, ignoring the stairs, ignoring the world. By evening she found herself back at Riverside Hospice. Grace was awake. She took one look at Sophia's face and said, "So, the truth caught you." Sophia collapsed into the chair and broke. When the phone rang that night she almost didn't answer. A known number. "Miss Bennett," a calm male voice said. "This is Julian Ashford." Her breath stopped. "I believe we need to talk." When power comes knocking. Sophia did not sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the same images looped through her mind. White hospital walls, Dr. Morrison's trembling hands, the name Julian Ashford echoing like a thunderclap. By dawn, her body felt hollow, as if something essential had been scooped out and replaced with dread. At precisely 1:30 p.m., a black luxury sedan pulled up in front of her apartment building. Sophia stood frozen at the window, heart racing. The car didn't honk. Didn't rush. It waited, patient, confident, accustomed to obedience. Power had arrived. The driver opened the door with practiced politeness. "Miss Bennett?" She nodded. The ride to Evergreen Manor passed in silence, winding roads climbing higher into guarded hills. When the estate finally appeared, Sophia felt painfully small. The gates alone were larger than her entire apartment building. Julian Ashford stood on the steps waiting for her. He looked nothing like the caricatures on magazine covers. No arrogance. No smug smile. Just a tall man with silver threaded through dark hair, eyes sharp with intelligence and something else, restraint. "Thank you for coming," he said, voice steady. "I didn't really have a choice," Sophia replied. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect. Inside, the house felt lived in, not staged. Books. Chess pieces mid-game. Framed photos turned face down. They sat across from each other in a sunlit room. "I won't insult you by pretending this is anything but catastrophic," Julian began. "I'm deeply sorry for what's been done to you." Sophia folded her arms. "Sorry doesn't undo it." "No," he agreed. "But honesty might prevent further damage." He told her about Natasha Whitmore. The engagement built on strategy, not love. The expectation of a child meant to cement alliances. Sophia listened, anger simmering. "And what do you want from me?" she asked. Julian didn't hesitate. "A solution." The word landed wrong. "You mean control?" Sophia said. "I mean protection," Julian countered. "For you. For the child." Then he told her about his wife, Caroline. 8 months pregnant. A drunk driver. No survivors. The grief in his voice was not rehearsed. It was old, heavy, carved deep. Sophia felt her anger shift, soften but not disappear. "You don't get to decide my life because you're afraid of pain," she said quietly. Julian met her gaze. "You're right." Then came the proposal. Marriage. Not romance. Not love. An arrangement. Sophia stood abruptly, heart hammering. "You want to erase me. Wrap me in your name and hide the mistake." "No," Julian said firmly. "I want to stand beside you instead of over you." The word surprised them both. Sophia left without answering. Back at her apartment, she found her stepmother waiting. Pregnant. Shame. Disappointment. Sophia locked herself in her room and cried until her chest ached. That night, she returned to Riverside Hospice. Grace listened. Then said softly, "Power fears what it can't control. And love terrifies those who've lost it." Sophia stared at the ceiling long after Grace fell asleep. 3 days later, she called Julian Ashford. "I have conditions," she said. And for the first time in years, Julian Ashford listened instead of commanded. The wedding no one was meant to see. The courthouse wedding took less than 15 minutes. No flowers. No music. No audience. Just a judge, 2 witnesses sworn to silence, and a secret that could shatter reputations if it ever escaped the room. Sophia wore a simple cream-colored dress that Julian's assistant had delivered without comment. It fit perfectly, which unsettled her more than if it hadn't. The fabric was soft, elegant, nothing like the life she'd lived until now. Julian stood beside her in a charcoal suit, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. Power followed him everywhere, even into rooms that were supposed to strip people down to their most human selves. The judge spoke. Vows were exchanged. When Julian took Sophia's hands, she noticed they were cold. "I promise to protect you," he said. "To respect your independence. To provide for our child and stand between you and harm." They were practical vows. Carefully constructed. When it was her turn, Sophia surprised herself. "I promise honesty," she said. "Even when it's uncomfortable. I promise to build a home, not just a house. And I promise to give this arrangement a chance to become something real. Something shifted in Julian's eyes. The kiss was meant to be symbolic. It wasn't. They pulled apart too quickly, both shaken. By evening, Sophia stood inside Evergreen Manor, staring at floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a city she no longer belonged to. "This is your home," Julian said. It didn't feel like it. The rooms were flawless. Cold. Designed for admiration, not living. Sophia moved carefully through the space, feeling like an intruder in a museum of wealth. That night, she slept alone in a guest suite that was larger than her old apartment. The next morning, the world found out. Not about the pregnancy. Not about the clinic. But about the marriage. Headlines exploded. Tech titan marries unknown nurse in secret ceremony. Ashford's surprised wife raises questions. Who is Sophia Bennett? The tone wasn't curious. It was cruel. Commentators speculated openly. Gold digger. Baby trap. Social climber. Sophia read until her hands shook, then stopped. When she returned to the hospice that afternoon, the looks were worse. Some nurses avoided her. Others whispered. One administrator pulled her aside. "We didn't know you were involved with someone like that." Like that. Grace was waiting. "They're circling you," Grace said calmly. "That's what people do when power chooses someone unexpected." Sophia swallowed. "I didn't choose this." "No," Grace said. "But you're choosing how you carry it." At Evergreen Manor, Julian watched the news in silence. "They're attacking you," he said finally. Sophia laughed bitterly. "Of course they are. You're untouchable." "I'm not." He turned to her. "That ends now." The next day, Julian invited her to a charity gala. Sophia refused. "They'll tear me apart." "Let them," Julian said. "They won't expect what happens next." The ballroom glittered with money and entitlement. Designers' dresses. Polished smiles. Sophia felt every stare. Natasha Whitmore stood across the room, eyes sharp, lips pressed thin. When Julian introduced Sophia as his wife, the silence was deafening. Natasha smiled politely. "Temporary," she said under her breath. Sophia straightened. Later that night, a board member laughed openly. From hospice nurse to Mrs. Ashford. That's quite the climb. Sophia met his gaze calmly. "I didn't climb. I was invited." The room froze. Julian stepped beside her. "She speaks for me," he said. "And anyone who disrespects her disrespects me." The laughter died instantly. For the first time, Sophia saw it. Instant karma. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just power being forced to bow to dignity. That night, Julian found her on the balcony. "You were incredible," he said. "I was terrified." He nodded. "So was I." For the first time they laughed together. And something began to crack open. When the truth demanded a price. The body has a way of forcing the truth into the open. Sophia collapsed during a hospice shift 3 weeks after the gala. One moment she was adjusting Grace's pillow, the next the room tilted violently, light smearing into colorless streaks. She barely felt herself hit the floor. When she woke, Julian was there. Not composed. Not controlled. Terrified. Doctors spoke in hushed voices about dehydration, stress, blood pressure. Sophia listened without really hearing. What she did hear was the quiet way Julian said, "I should have protected you better." She reached for his hand. "You are." The pregnancy could no longer remain a secret. Julian made the announcement himself. Not through leaks. Not through spin. A press conference. Cameras flashed as he stood beside Sophia, his hand steady at the small of her back. "There was a medical error," Julian said. "A catastrophic one. A clinic failed in its duty, and an innocent woman bore the consequences." Gasps rippled through the room. "This child is mine," he continued. "And my wife deserves respect, not speculation." Sophia stood silent, heart pounding, the world finally hearing her existence spoken with dignity. The backlash was immediate. And brutal. The clinic denied responsibility. Board members scrambled. Lawyers circled. Dr. Morrison resigned. Then the evidence surfaced. Internal emails. Ignored warnings. Labeling shortcuts. Cover-ups. The truth spread faster than the clinic could contain it. Regulators stepped in. Licenses were suspended. Executives were arrested. The same institution that had treated Sophia like collateral damage was now begging for mercy. Instant karma. Natasha Whitmore went public next. Her pregnancy wasn't Julian's. She accused the clinic of theft, betrayal, manipulation. But instead of attacking Sophia, she did something unexpected. She apologized. "I blamed the wrong woman," Natasha said in an interview. The system failed us both. Sophia watched the broadcast in silence. Grace squeezed her hand. It takes strength to admit you were wrong. Julian changed too. He attended prenatal appointments, asked questions, built a nursery himself, refusing designers. When Sophia cried one night from exhaustion, he didn't try to fix it. He stayed and listened. The world's tone shifted. Articles softened. Public opinion turned. Sophia Bennett was no longer the nurse who trapped a billionaire. She was the woman who endured humiliation with grace. The woman who exposed institutional arrogance. The woman who reminded people that power without accountability rots. At the hospice, donations poured in. A new wing was named after Grace Chin. Sophia watched Julian sign the paperwork, humbled. You didn't have to do this, she said. He shook his head. I did. Power should repair what it breaks. The night Grace passed, Julian held Sophia as she cried. No one should die alone, he whispered. And Sophia knew, this was no longer an arrangement. This was becoming something real. What power could never buy. The night Sophia went into labor, rain hammered against the hospital windows like a reckoning. Not soft rain. Not gentle rain. The kind that stripped the air clean. Julian never left her side. Not when contractions tore through her body. Not when fear tightened her grip around his hand. Not when the doctor spoke quickly and the room filled with movement. For a man who had controlled boardrooms, governments, and billion-dollar negotiations, there was nothing he could do now but stay present. And he did. When their daughter cried for the first time, something in Julian Ashford finally broke. Not shattered, but he held the tiny, wrinkled life against his chest, tears sliding freely down his face, unashamed. Power meant nothing in that moment. Reputation meant nothing. Control meant nothing. Only her. Sophia watched him, exhausted and aching, and understood something with stunning clarity. This was never about money, or status, or damage control. It was about becoming human again. They named her Grace, in honor of the woman who taught Sophia how to endure, how to soften without surrendering strength. The public response stunned everyone. Not outrage. Respect. Footage of Julian holding his daughter circulated everywhere, not as spectacle but as something quietly transformative. The clinic's final verdict arrived weeks later. Permanent closure. Criminal convictions. National policy reform. The system that once treated a quiet nurse as expendable was dismantled piece by piece. And Sophia never had to raise her voice. She returned to the hospice after maternity leave. Same scrubs. Same compassion. But now when administrators spoke, they listened. When donors arrived, they followed her lead. Julian never interfered. This is your world, he told her. I'm just a guest. At home, the mansion changed completely. Laughter replaced silence. Toys scattered across marble floors. Sophia painted walls herself. Julian cooked badly and proudly. They argued sometimes. They learned each other slowly. Not perfectly, but honestly. One evening, months later, Julian found Sophia rocking Grace in the nursery. I was wrong, he said quietly. About what? Love being a weakness. Sophia smiled softly. We usually are, before we're ready. He knelt beside her. I don't want arrangements anymore. She met his eyes. Neither do I. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, something far more powerful had taken root. Not dominance, not wealth, but respect earned through humility. And karma finally served exactly where it belonged.